Hello, and I hope you're all keeping safe, and welcome to episode 5 of Howells Histories. And today's topic is medieval medicine. Now, in popular culture, the medieval doctor and surgeon is a quack, a fraud who is peddling cures of dubious use and superstitious claptrap. And yet, the staff who went into medicine went into it for much the same reason as the staff today: to cure the sick and to help others. And patients would return, prepared to pay out of their own pockets, in the absence of the NHS, to be treated. And as we study medieval medicine, we come to realise that the medieval doctor and surgeon are much more capable than we first realise. And, dare we say it, they actually have some lessons still to teach us today. Now, with the fall of Alexandria in 643 AD, the medieval West effectively lost touch with writings on surgery for some 500 years. Now, the loss of Alexandria was a real blow to civilization. You had the Great Library of Alexandria, which had tried to get a copy of every book and scroll in existence, and it was burnt by the advancing Muslim Empire. A real loss to mankind. A lot of the books that were in that library now no longer exist. We know that they existed because we have a partially burnt copy of the contents guide to the Great Library of Alexandria, letting us know what shelves to look onto for certain books. And we know that some of the books it tells us to find on certain shelves no longer exist. A huge loss of knowledge. But with the burning of the Great Library of Alexandria, then the West loses touch with writings of surgery. But they have a number of theories as to why people got sick. Now, many people believed that people got sick due to God's will. Hence why so many sick people would put models of arms or legs on altars in the hope that it would make them better. You know, you break your arm, you put a little model arm on the altar, maybe God will have mercy and heal your arm. Other theories were linked to the ideas of the classic world. They had the theory of the four humours, that we were all made of just four fluids: of blood, of black bile, yellow bile, and phlegm. And you got ill if these humours were out of balance, if you had too much of one of these fluids. Hence the medieval obsession with bloodletting and purging to try and remove too much blood or too much phlegm. Surgeons would attempt to drain the body of fluids to restore the four humours to balance, or to recommend a special diet to bring these humours back into balance. Other theories blame disease on bad smells, what we call miasmatic theory. They had the idea that there were clouds of evil-smelling poisons that roamed the earth, spreading plague and disease. If you've ever been to a festival toilet and come out feeling sick because of the smell, that's a medieval theory of disease. That's miasmatic theory. Now, another theory that they had was that the alignment of the planets, what we call astrology, could make people sick. There was also an early Dark Age English doctor, personal doctor to King Alfred the Great, a man called Bald, and he left us his medical book. It's called a leech book because it's a doctor's book, and obviously doctors use leeches. And so if you read Bald's leech book, then he has an insane theory, perhaps, of why people got sick. He blamed elves. As they walked around the countryside, they found prehistoric little arrowheads and spearheads, little flint arrowheads, and they believed that these were the missed arrows of elves. They believed that the elves, if you read your Bible, you know that we're descended from Abel, who was killed by his brother Cain. They believed that we were descended from Abel, and the elves were descended from Cain, cursed and hated by God for that sin of killing Abel. Apparently they were always just out of sight. They were the things that you saw moving out of the corner of your eye. And they hated us because we were beloved by God. And so they wanted to make us sick with these flint arrowheads. If you got sick, you were elf shot. Now, you could tell if you'd been elf shot. Look at your fingernails. If you see any little white flecks, that's a sign that you have become elf shot. And they have this theory because they have a very weak idea of history. They don't really understand that things were different in the past. And so when they see these prehistoric arrowheads, they're not sure why they're there, and hence they link them to their theory of elves. That's also why, by the way, if you look at medieval paintings, they always show biblical scenes in the very latest of fashions, because they can't get it into their heads that in the past people dressed differently, which means that even when fashions were invented during their lifetimes and they're painting images that happened before their lives, they still paint them in the latest of fashions, because that's what people wear. That's why medieval paintings of biblical battles show people in full plate armour, because that's what soldiers wear, and these are battles, so they must have worn that too. And so they have this theory that the elves hate us and they help to make us sick. And yet, amidst this collection of seemingly crazy theories, there are hard-working doctors and surgeons, and their work and indeed their genius is all too often forgotten in our rush to condemn the past. They're people who are working hard to improve medicine. And although there were huge gaps in medical science, there were still some things that they were very good at, and their standards were at times incredibly high. Now, when we think about Bold, the one who was convinced that elves were making people sick, it's very, very easy to laugh at his ideas. But he was a great doctor, indeed personal physician to the king. Now, I might say, why was he a great doctor? Well, if you read his leech book, he has a recipe in there saying that devils or demons fill the air, invisible to the eye, and that they can get into open wounds. And there's a recipe in there for how to cast out these open wounds. Now, of course, one of the great curses of the modern age is MRSA, the bacteria that are resistant to modern antibiotics, killing people in hospitals even as I speak, sadly. Well, in Nottingham University, they tried the recipe on Bald's leech book, and to their surprise, they discovered that it kills MRSA. Now, let's think about this for a minute. Bald, he's writing in the Dark Age England, and yet he knows how to cure MRSA from his patients. But we laugh at his ideas because he says that it's to drive out devils and demons from open wounds. But he doesn't have the word bacteria. And he believes the air is full of invisible things that are trying to get into his patient's body and make them sick, and he wants to drive them out. Is it so very different to the idea of what the modern doctors are trying to do in trying to cast out bacteria from our body? It's just a different vocabulary. And so if you can go onto the BBC website now and type in medieval medicine curing MRSA, and you'll find that Nottingham University is currently making steps to try and mass produce the recipe from Bald's leech book to try and roll it out into NHS hospitals. Because in our rush to condemn, in our rush to believe ourselves superior to medieval doctors, we have found it very easy to laugh at his ideas of elves. But he could make his patients better. He could cure the sick, is just using a different vocabulary and doesn't have access to microscopes to see bacteria. So let us start to look at what we can learn from medieval doctors. And we're going to go back in our next video to the very start of medieval doctors and chase our way through a series of famous doctors and surgeons.